So this was another push for Quadesia Holly Johnson to be released. She is pregnant, so her attorneys wanted her out of jail just, another try to make that happen. That didn't happen. This is one of those stories where there's heightened emotion, period, considering the circumstances. You have a mom killed, you have the mom of the other child still by the same man who allegedly pulls the trigger here. I say allegedly because that's what we have to say, right? And so both sides are very angry, hurt, emotional. Quadesia Holly Johnson is pregnant, so you have a lot of her family feels like she should not be there. This was the first time that she had ever gotten into serious trouble. She did not have a criminal record, a criminal past, and so they want her out. At the same time, Romica's family wants justice, and so to have those.
Walked out and started fucking with my brother. We're gonna see Pete for the rest of your life. Okay. We're gonna see Pete for the rest of your life. You know we got it on us. We've been quiet for too long. We've been quiet too long.
What happens when the pursuit of justice in a courtroom spills into the hallways, turning the corridors of law into a battleground of raw, unfiltered grief and rage? How does a single moment of violence outside the courthouse walls change the entire trajectory of a murder case? On December 23, 2025, the murder case against Quadesia Holly Johnson took a sudden explosive turn. It was a day meant for legal procedure, for arguments about bail and evidence in the killing of Romica Meeks. Instead, it became the day the simmering tension between two families, the Johnsons and the family of Meeks, erupted into a physical confrontation that would see a key figure in the case, Carlos Smith, placed in handcuffs by sheriff's deputies. This is not just an update. This is the story of a case cracking under the pressure of its own immense human tragedy. If you followed the story of Romica Meeks, you need to understand how December 23rd changed everything. Stick with me. And right now, for the deepest dives into true crime, hit subscribe and ring the bell for True Crime Unraveled. To grasp the weight of what happened on December 23rd, we have to understand exactly what Holly Johnson is accused of and why the judge has repeatedly called her a danger. Holly Johnson was charged with first-degree murder after a 3-month investigation into the September 8th shooting. The state's case, as laid out in court documents, is stark and specific. It alleges this was not a spontaneous act of self-defense, but a killing preceded by clear threats and enabled by another person. Prosecutors state that on that morning, Holly and Carlos Smith were doing a baby handoff on West Cermak Road when Romica Meeks, having just dropped her own son at school, drove up. An argument began. According to multiple independent witnesses, Carlos Smith is alleged to have escalated the physical confrontation, striking Romica with her car door and placing her in a chokehold. Critically, witnesses report that during this struggle, Holly Johnson made her intentions clear. She is alleged to have said, "I'm gonna shoot you, B. Watch me shoot you, B." Witnesses further state that Carlos Smith told Romica, "She's gonna go get her gun. Watch." Holly Johnson then retrieved her legally owned 9mm handgun from her car. As Romica broke free from the chokehold, Johnson fired. Once. A pause. Then 2 more shots. Romica Meeks was struck 3 times and died. But the state's allegation doesn't end with the shots. Witnesses then reported seeing Holly Johnson and Carlos Smith fist bump immediately afterward, a gesture the prosecution argues shows a callous celebration, not the stunned trauma of someone who just fought for their life. This fist bump allegation, more than anything, shaped the court's view. At Holly's bond hearing, the judge pointed to it, stating that celebrating in the street was wholly inconsistent with a claim of self-defense. It was a major reason bail was denied. Holly Johnson would remain in custody, her self-defense claim now facing its first major legal test. Which brings us to December 23rd. Another court hearing. Another attempt by Holly's defense attorneys to secure her release, this time citing her pregnancy. The judge again denied the request. The legal machinery was grinding forward. But outside the courtroom, the human emotions the law tries to contain were overflowing. Here's what we know from reporters on the scene and social media footage. After the hearing, Holly Johnson's family and supporters were led out of the courtroom first. They lingered in the hallway. Then, Romica Meeks' family and their supporters, many wearing pink, Romica's favorite color, exited. The two groups, representing the absolute polar opposites of this tragedy, were now face-to-face in a confined space. Words were exchanged. Heated, painful, volatile words. It's unclear who said what first, but the anguish of losing a daughter, a sister, a mother, collided with the fear and defense of a daughter, a sister, a mother facing life in prison. The verbal clash spilled out of the courthouse entrance onto the street. In the middle of this was Carlos Smith. Present at the hearing, he was now outside, surrounded by this high-voltage atmosphere. Videos from the scene show shouting, pointing, a crowd forming. And then, the swift response of Cook County Sheriff's deputies who were monitoring the situation. The footage is chaotic but clear. Carlos Smith, along with a male supporter of the Meeks family, is suddenly surrounded by deputies. He is turned around and his hands are placed behind his back. The metallic click of handcuffs is audible. He is detained, led away, and brought back inside the courthouse. It was not an arrest on a new warrant related to the murder, but a detention following the confrontation, a public, physical manifestation of a central, controversial role in this entire story. For the Meeks family, seeing the man they believe enabled Romica's death placed in handcuffs was a moment of stark, visceral symbolism. For observers, it raised immediate questions. Would this affect the murder case? Would Carlos now face separate charges? The immediate aftermath saw 3 people detained. The narrative, as often happens, split in two. Some sources claimed Carlos approached the family aggressively. Others claimed the family confronted him. What's undeniable is the result. The very person whose alleged actions are detailed in the murder proffer against Holly Johnson was now in custody himself, if only temporarily, because the pain from that September morning could not be contained by a courtroom door. This confrontation has real consequences. Judges have a primary duty: courtroom safety and the integrity of proceedings. When family clashes turn physical, judges have the power to limit who can attend future hearings. They can restrict the gallery to immediate family only, forcing others to watch via Zoom. The very public support that has surrounded the Meeks family, the sea of pink in the courtroom, could be jeopardized by the need to keep order. The December 23rd incident didn't just result in handcuffs. It potentially changed the landscape of the trial itself. So, where does the case stand now? Quadesia, Holly Johnson sits in jail, charged with first-degree murder, her self-defense claim facing its toughest challenge, yet in the detailed witness accounts. Carlos Smith remains a volatile figure at the center of the storm, his every move scrutinized, his freedom now punctuated by a moment of detention broadcast for all to see. And Romica Meeks' family continues their agonizing wait for justice, their public mourning having now escalated into a public clash. The question is no longer just about what happened on September 8th. It's about whether the justice system can withstand the pressure of the emotion it is meant to resolve. Can this case be tried only on the facts, or will the hallway confrontations and social media battles become an inescapable part of its story? What do you think? Does the physical confrontation outside the courthouse change your perspective on the tensions driving this case? What should the judge do to ensure a fair trial after this? Drop your thoughts below. We read every single one and appreciate you keeping the conversation going. If you want follow-up on cases where the drama outside the courtroom is as critical as the evidence inside, make sure to give this video a thumbs up. It really helps. Don't forget to subscribe to True Crime Unraveled on YouTube and follow True Crime Unraveled TV on Facebook and TikTok for all the latest updates. We are committed to following every twist in this story. Thank you for watching. We see your comments. We appreciate your passion for Romica. I'll see you in the next one.
Tia Ewing is here to give us an update on this terrible tragedy that took place a few months ago. Romica Blackman killed by a woman that shared father of a child, Quadesia Johnson. They were in court today.
They were.
What happened?
A lot happened. So this was another push for Quadesia Holly Johnson to be released. She is pregnant, so her attorneys wanted her out of jail, just, another try to make that happen. That didn't happen. This is one of those stories where there's heightened emotion, period, considering the circumstances. You have a mom killed, you have the mom of the other child still by the same man who allegedly pulls the trigger here. I say allegedly because that's what we have to say, right? And so both sides are very angry, hurt, emotional. Quadesia Holly Johnson is pregnant, so you have a lot of her family feels like she should not be there. This was the first time that she had ever gotten into serious trouble. She did not have a criminal record, a criminal past, and so they want her out. At the same time, Romica's family wants justice. And so to have those two dynamics in one small space, which you remember last hearing, they had to move it to a totally different space because there were so many people, so many supporters of both women. And it happened again. You have emotion. So to my understanding, we had one of our freelancers, or I shouldn't say freelance, one of our producers there who was kind of watching all of this play out. Quadesia's family was released from the courtroom first. They lingered, kind of, stayed around a little bit longer. And then by the time Romica's family was released, both families collide. They're in the hallways together. We have some of that video which shows an argument of some sort. This side is saying this side is saying that. Both sides are having a war of words. It goes outside of the Layton Criminal Courthouse. And there's two different narratives. I don't want to be the person that puts out both of them, because who knows what's the truth in all of that, because we were not there. But what we can say is that the father that both women share was put into handcuffs. We talked to him, so we know what he looks like. His name is Carlos Smith, right? We interviewed him before. He's put in handcuffs. A person from Romica Blackman's entourage, because I don't want to say their family, they could be simply a supporter, also was put in handcuffs. And we know that because as a sign of unity, they've been wearing pink. That person had on a pink sweatshirt. So we see those two people being taken into handcuffs, and then another male was put into handcuffs. There's two different narratives of what happened. You have Romica's family saying their version of what happened. You have Quadesia Holly Johnson's family saying their version. They're not the same version. So we don't really know what the exact truth is. I did reach out to the Cook County Sheriff's Department, because in the video that it has been widely spread on social media of what happens outside, you don't see how the fight starts, but you do see law enforcement with body cams on. So they were already there. It appeared as all of these words were happening, they followed them out of the courthouse. So they were already out there before whatever fight happened outside of the courthouse. So they would be able to give us the best narrative on a neutral standpoint of what their cameras capture.
And there are some questions for them too, because again, if this is a second court hearing where these families have met, and there were conversations online before everyone entered the courtroom today, was there a heightened security stance? How did they even get to the point of having a fight, if so?
Very true. So what I was told by our boots on the ground is that they did not think it was a smart decision to allow the families to linger. And the initial family that lingered was Holly Johnson, Quadesia Holly Johnson's family. So they thought that police should have said, hey, you can't just stand in the hallways, you got to move. And because that didn't happen, both families crossed paths. And you're absolutely right. What do you expect to happen there? You're going to have chaos. You're going to have a war of words. And we know war of words sometimes can lead into punches in a fight.
A war of words led to why they're in there with someone who is not alive today.
To begin with, right? Because going back, we know that those two women had never even met. So we know it was literally war of words going on. And so knowing that, right, just knowing that going into that courtroom, you would expect police to tell them, you cannot linger here, you cannot stand here. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. It led to a fight. So we're trying to confirm if all three individuals are being actually charged and held, or if they were just taken into custody, taken back into the courthouse to just, cool off, be separated, and then go on about their way. I do want to point out the fact that I did reach out to the family of Romica Blackman to find out, what are they willing to say. I have not heard back from them. And I called Carlos directly, Carlos Smith, who's the father of both children's, of both women's children.
Right.
Very difficult to say at times, to see if he's actually detained. He didn't answer. So I don't know if that's an indication if he's charged or what. But the Cook County Sheriff's Department should be able to tell us if all three are charged and what they're charged with and what their names, et cetera. So.
And the layout of what happened.
Yeah, and really the question for them is, and I will follow up with this email after this conversation, what will you do on January 7th? Because January 7th is the next court hearing for Ms. Johnson. And if you don't contain this now, what does that look like? And I did a Facebook Live and I talked about this. There's been different court cases that I've covered over the years. When you have this much emotion, what will happen is you won't have to make the decision, the judge will. And the judge will basically say, there's too much emotion that is leading to violence in this case. We're gonna limit who comes in the courtroom. You can watch from Zoom, but in terms of both sides meeting like this in the courtroom, there will be limited seats. Maybe there's 5, 10 seats, whatever. But that has happened, in addition to some other measures that, I'm sure the family wouldn't want to see happen, but that is why, it's important to try to figure out, from a law enforcement standpoint, how this will be handled moving forward.
Yeah, and so obviously the brawl that took place today has a lot of people talking, but what actually happened in the case today? What was the outcome of the case today?
Quadesia Holly Johnson was not allowed to leave. I think that has been a point of contention here since the first hearing, is will she remain behind bars as the proceedings move forward? Her attorneys don't want that to happen because she's pregnant. They're arguing again that, she didn't have this horrible criminal record, that this is like just a bad situation in this moment that happened. And the judge simply did not honor that. So she will remain behind bars. January 7th is the next court hearing. And I think what you'll see is there will be several hearings, and at some point they will have to make a decision on when to seat a jury. But I think right now is the evidentiary hearings where they're collecting all type of evidence. They're going to basically collect and talk to all those witnesses. They may talk to them again. They may look at all the videos, make sure that her side, the defendant's side in this, has all the videos. So it's really paperwork right now. And then eventually they'll get into the trial. Trials in Illinois can take a very long time. But I think this is one that, because of all of the things and all of the pieces of the puzzle, we may see you're offered a speedy trial anyway, right? You're supposed to be. That's just, the Constitution, that's legally. But speaking like on the basis of this case, it may be expedited because of what's going on. So.
Well, I think I always end our conversations about this particular situation the same way by saying at the end of the day, the children, all of the children who are involved stand to lose the most with this entire situation playing out.
Yeah, and we know that in Romica's case, she will never see her children again, no matter if, that's her standing. She's not Quadesia Holly Johnson in this case where you can go visit in jail. And that's not to take away from Quadesia Holly Johnson fighting for her innocence in this. That's just stating a fact. And she's also pregnant. So that's a child that's growing up in some very, crazy circumstances too. The 7-year-old being Carlos Jr., who was left behind now being raised by his grandmother, Tina McMiller. It's tough all the way around. We do know that the 7-year-old, we're going to have this on our newscast a little later in the 4 o'clock show and 5 o'clock, but the 7-year-old was gifted like a Christmas today. I think he also did Christmas in the ward for where they live now. There's some, I guess, it's hard to say there's some positive because that's still not bringing your mom back.
Right.
But at least you get to have some type of normalcy that children are used to around this time of year. So,
and it shows at least the community cares.
Yeah, the community cares. My husband, Early Walker, was the one who orchestrated that on his own. It had nothing to do with me in the story. It was just looking at all of the crime victims, which is what he's done over the years before I existed in his life, what crime victims, especially children, go through, what story right now is like the most like, whoa, that happened. And in this case, the saddest part, I think, is why he's been shining a light on it, and others too, is because this little boy has lost two parents in a way.
Yeah.
Because grandmother doesn't want to see dad.
Right.
Because dad is implicated, at least she feels, in all of this as being part of this whole story. And then mom is never coming back. So it's just,
It's
that's
sad.
the part of the story that I think gets lost in all of the emotions and anger of who said what, who did what, who should have done what. It are the children. They're left, in really tough circumstances.
Very tough. We appreciate you staying on it, though.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
Thank you. And thank you to your husband as well.
Yeah,
for
happy
what he-
holidays.
Stepping up in a big way. Happy holidays to you, too.
We've been quiet for too long. We've been quiet too long. You should have told me that.
Boy, they just beat the light stream on
You gonna see pink for the rest of your life. You should have told Holly who the fuck was. We've been too quiet, G. This is a real trouble. You confused. You know exactly who the fuck we are. You ruined that girl's life and you killed my sister.